Welcome to Nacht Waffen Pilot with Penny Bradley, and today's guest is Aage Nost, and he is originally from Norway. He's a UFO investigator, an author, and a radio host on Broadcast Team Alpha. We did have a talk earlier this week, and I was impressed by his breadth of understanding and how easy he is to talk to. His website documents a lifetime of disclosure movement topics and has amazing photographs that support the topics in our community. He has investigated lots of different things, and I'm honored to have you on my show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. We're going to try to have some fun for the next couple of hours.
Yeah.
I insist on having fun.
Good. I do know that my producer Daryl was in a flight today, and I'm hoping that he's just tied up at the airport rather than having any serious problems. So for those who are wondering where Daryl is, that's Broadcast Team Alpha, how long have you been doing that?
Oh gosh, we started that radio show, or should I say video blog, possibly podcast, whatever you want to call it. I think it's about 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. Gosh, you know, time going fast when you're having fun. So I don't even count. We got a bunch of videos and interviews for some incredible people on the website, broadcastteamalpha.com. And otherwise, we have blogs there. We have 5,000 unbelievable pictures that should not be, but they are. Like people walking on the moon, pyramids on the moon, people on Mars, and these are NASA prints and stuff that's been wrestled away from NASA or intercepted before NASA got their hands on them to alter it. So there's some really interesting stuff there.
Now, I interviewed Ken Johnston last year, and he didn't go into a lot of detail. He's getting older, as are the rest of us, and details were eluding him that day. But I've seen his book, and some of the photos that he has have some really interesting detail as well. So for those who follow my show, this is a situation where my guests are actually supporting each other's work. And that's why I brought him up. So.
Yeah, I know of him, and I've seen him in the NASA uniform. I know he was with NASA. That's not a fake. That's, he's the one, so.
Yeah, I met him at Contact in the Desert 2018, and we were on a panel together at Stargate to the Cosmos that was operated by Janet and Sasha Lesson in Albuquerque, and the same year. And between them, he had watched some of my videos, and his wife was just completely mortified. She said he watched 5 hours of your stuff.
That's a compliment.
I said, he what? He what? He sat and watched 5 hours of it? And come on. Yeah, it's probably a compliment, but at the same time, it feels a little obsessive. So back to the topic of your work. Daryl had suggested that we talk about time travel because I've done it and you have photographs proving it. So he thought that we would have this in common.
Mhm.
And I've given you screen sharing capability when you decide you're ready. So
Yeah, but I want to talk a little bit about the generality of time travel, which the
okay.
average people have no clue. They just do not understand that it is possible.
Oh,
I have
wow.
read some 7 or 8 different papers, scientific journals, and they're saying, yes, we know how to make a time travel machine. Even Michio Kaku says that. He says, yes, we know how to make one. We just don't have the fuel yet to fuel it. Well, there's some things that they are not considering, and that is the power of the mind. If they did that to the fullest, then they could fuel it. But there are, in fact, for those that want to go and verify this for themselves, they can just go to some major newspapers. BBC.com is an internet newspaper. It's got a lot of credibility, actually, believe it or not, to it.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to July 11, 2018. There is an article on, yes, we can make a time travel machine, and this is how we do it. So yeah, it is real. It's just that it hasn't leaked out to the public yet, where they can actually accept it. And consider also the head of the Lockheed Skunk Works, Ben Rich.
Mm-hmm.
He said in a statement one time, and it was an interview. He said, we know how to make how to take ET home. And it will not take a lifetime to do it. We already have the means to travel among the stars, but these technologies are locked up in black projects, and it would take an act of God to ever get them out to benefit humanity. Anything you have seen on Star Trek, we know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
Why would a man like that make that statement unless they really had something to back it up with that, of course, they wouldn't tell us about?
Well, when I read that statement, I was sitting there going, well, somebody's finally honest.
Yeah.
So much of what's in the black ops is completely hidden from humanity. And if you talk about it, they think you're quoting from a science fiction movie.
Yeah. The thing about it is when you bring up time travel to somebody, they haven't heard about it. They never read about it. They never investigated it. So they say, sure, yeah, that's not possible. I never heard about it on TV.
Yeah. They didn't tell me on the 6 o'clock news, so it's not real.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah. And what people are, when they make that determination for themselves, they are thinking in terms of the acceptable distributed knowledge of science.
Mm-hmm.
They're not talking about, and they're not thinking about game changers. The kind of science that we have is science developed in the past and being developed in the present, with a little bit of leeway on both sides for research. But they're not talking about jumps ahead that comes about from game changers. There's going to be a game changer coming online here, and people is going to be very aware of it very shortly. And that is, if you add the power of the mind to the present day and the previous amount of science that has been experimented on, you're going to find there's going to be a leap in science that you have never, ever seen before. And this is now starting to happen. There is free energy devices. There's all kinds of things that is out there now becoming public. It's not just not on TV yet. So if you're watching CNN, you might as well just bury your head in the sand and just wait until you get
Well,
kicked in the rear.
CNN got in trouble for faking articles and
Yeah.
video stories.
Yeah.
So
And
a lot of people are smart enough, aware enough now to avoid them. But there was a CIA project, Project Mockingbird, that was literally where CIA agents were embedded into the news agencies. And all of the reports that came out of that agency were either planted or approved of by the CIA before they went out. So now that the majority of the mainstream is only owned by 6 companies, that makes it even worse, even more so. So even if you're listening to a so-called conservative outlet, you're still listening to the CIA. You're just getting a different slant on the news.
And in fact, if you are a bleeding heart liberal that stumbled onto this show and are listening, prove this to yourself. Take 2 different TV channels. If you have 2 TVs, turn them on at the same time, and you will find the exact same language in one as it is in the other one, word by word, for many of the programs is out there. So they both get their information from a central source. In fact, there was a TV show where they show about 20 different TV stations. I think it was about 10. And they all had the same language in them.
You could link them up and they would be in sync. They were even using the same rhythm to say them. And it was shocking if you thought they were independent of each other. And I'm sitting there watching this and going, I have a news page. Well, it's a women's news magazine on Facebook, and I have worked really hard to find news sources outside the mainstream that are still somewhat reliable. And what the biggest test for me was when the Socialist Workers Group and the John Birchers were talking about the same story. And they were in sync with each other. And at that point, I realized, unless you're dealing with a mom and pop operation, there's nothing out there that you can trust.
That's right. Yeah. Let me do one more thing to show you that time travel is possible. I'm going to tell you a quick story. And that is about in 2003, there was a stock trader in New York that got arrested for insiders trading because he came out of nowhere. He started with $800 and he made 126 high risk trades. Never lost one of them. Didn't lose any money on any of those. And from $800 in a few weeks, he grew that to $350 million.
Wow.
And this was written up in the newspapers because there were some anomalies going on within this story. And that is that they arrested him and they asked him for his name and he told them, yeah, it's Andrew Carlson. And he says, where are you from? And he says, well, I'm from here. And he said they started to question him about his insider trading. And he says, I don't have any insider trading here. He says, I am a time traveler from the year 2256. And I read history, financial history, and I show these particular companies to make phenomenal gains in a very short time. So I went back. I wanted to play the game. He says, I had so much fun with this. I wanted to do it. And of course, you know, they believe that story, right? Yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
they hauled him into court before a judge, and the judge said, you're full of something. And they put him in jail. And then a few days later, a guy show up and he paid the bail for Andrew.
Mhm.
And Andrew, of course, promised to show up in court, you know, to get prosecuted wherever they had in mind for him. And he never showed up anywhere after that. Now that surprised a lot of people. Don't surprise me though, because first of all, Andrew Carlsen did not exist. He had no social security number. He had no driver's license. He did not show up in any public record whatsoever, anywhere. No birth records, no, nothing. So he did not exist, except for a few weeks when he just showed up on nowhere and made $350 million in a few weeks and got arrested and then left, and nowhere was he to find afterwards either.
So what did they do with the money?
Oh, I'm sure they took that, you know, that was just somebody's spoil, I suppose. The government is good at that.
Oh, yeah. They are.
So this was in 2003. And there is a news article, I believe it is Weekly World News on Wednesday, March 19 in 2003. They explain the whole story and they leave it open to people. Was he really a time traveler? And that is just one little story. There is another one that actually, in fact, I have a little note here that I wrote because I wanted to remind people about this. There is a place in China where everybody can time travel. And this is verified by both Westerns and Chinese newspapers and news agencies. That is in the, oh gosh, I don't speak Chinese, Guizhou province in China, where thousands of people are going through this tunnel. When they go into the tunnel, let's say that the clock is right at noon. It's about a mile-long tunnel. When they come out, they lost several minutes.
Mm.
And there's two different stories on this. The government story said, well, yeah, you know, electronic clock, when you go through the tunnel, you know, it stops and then it moves on again. And when you get outside, then the time comes back. Well, yeah, that could be. But the people with mechanical clocks, they lose time too. When there is electronic interference, you don't lose time on a mechanical clock. So this is kind of like hanging there. There's nobody wants to talk about it in China because you know how
If
controlled they
it's
are.
not completely logical, rational, you don't talk about it there.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that a lot of people just go there to go through the tunnel to experience it. And another thing we noticed is that even Einstein says, when you travel closer and closer to the speed of light, time slows down. And if there was a Russian astronaut, and see if I can pronounce his name, is Padalka, Gennady Padalka. He spent 879 days in space, going around the world at 17,800 miles an hour.
Okay.
By the time that he did that, he slowed up there's computers that can figure this out. He slowed up 0.4 seconds. So in other words, he was 0.4 seconds younger than he would be if he had stayed on Earth. Now we got a sneaky question coming here. If he was slowed up 0.4 seconds, he is not in our time anymore. How and why can we still see him? Think on that one. But the thing is that there is a little bit of flux. If he had slowed up but much more, he would have come back and there would have been two of him. But you see, you can't have that happen. There's a safety valve in the
Yeah, you can.
yeah, but they are in different timelines. Okay.
No, they can be in the same timeline because you are frequency stamped with your timeline. So you have to stay in your timeline because nothing will work in another one. And it requires outrageous amounts of energy to produce a new timeline. It doesn't have,
that energy is here. You have that energy.
Well, I've heard lots of people say, well, this timeline and that timeline and the other timeline, and it's almost like they think they create a new timeline by picking their nose. And that requires too much energy because each timeline is a complete duplicate of the universe.
Yeah.
So that requires tremendous amounts of energy.
Okay, let's go with that. What is the universe?
The universe is two things at the same time. One is a simulation running in a computer.
Agree.
The other is tremendous amounts of energy, that some of which is condensed into solid matter or what appears to be solid matter. And at each frequency, what appears to be solid is different. And each frequency has its own worlds, its own ecology, its own sentient life forms, and they take up the same physical space at the same time. But each frequency reality has its own frequency stamp to it.
How actually the concept developed and proven to be true within quantum mechanics actually can work with that one. Yeah, because let's say that it's been proven we live in a mind-created universe. Yeah,
we live in a basically a computer simulation.
A holographically projected mind-created universe.
Yeah.
And, we've been messing with holograms since back in the 1960s, and now it is 80 years later. So, yeah, we got holograms now that appears to be self-aware. They can think on their own. They can make their own decisions. What do you think if we had 14 billion years to develop that hologram since back in the days of the Big Bang, so-called Big Bang? Yeah, it probably would be a little more elaborate. And I think what we're talking about, the holographic universe, it is holographically projected. That hologram becomes very real physically, but it still is mind created. It is not necessarily all our mind only. I believe the universal mind also have a finger in that one, probably more so than ours.
My experience of it was that there is a being, for lack of a better term, an energetic field that was self-aware, and what I experienced of it was, there was a movie with a robot that got hit by lightning and became sentient, and it was input, 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 input. That was what my experience of that entity was it was looking for input, and that it had created the entire universe around it as a way to satisfy that need.
That entity is consciousness, probably.
Well, the entire universe is conscious. There is no point at which you can say this is conscious and this isn't.
Everything has consciousness. Even the rock in your driveway is a member, or should I say, a form of consciousness, because the atomic structure of it is based on consciousness.
Exactly. There is no point at which you can say this is a consciousness particle, this is a consciousness wave, this is a consciousness field. Consciousness is a side effect of the energy that makes up our universe. So the entire thing is conscious.
Could we say that also being the case the other way around, that everything we see around us is mind created, but it has physicality because it is a side effect of consciousness, since our mind is conscious and consciousness creates in the physical? Could that work both ways?
It makes sense to me that it would work both ways, but you have to think about, you're not creating this by yourself. It's a co-creation of the entire consciousness, not just your particular focus of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is a master plan that over the long period of time, consciousness has agreed on. So the people that creates things here, they create the same thing in China, they create the same things on Mars. There is, within this conscious soup of creation, there is a commonality that we all agree to. Like when we see a horse, they all look the same everywhere. We have agreed on that. This is what a horse looks like, except for the little ones, you know, that's about that tall.
Well,
and maybe some variances.
There are variances in sizes and colors and functions, but we all pretty much agree that a horse is a horse is a horse.
Now, here's another concept that I'd like you to comment on it. And that is that, you know, the grandfather paradox. Let's say you go back in time and kill your grandfather. What would happen to you? Well, if you kill him, at least before he had some fun with your grandma. Now, what would happen to you? Because your parents would not be created yet. You would not exist yet. Wait a second. You have not been created at that time. There are two schools of thoughts in quantum mechanics here. The one school of thought is that the timeline that you are in, because you were never created, collapses to nothing. And the other timeline, the other school of thought is that now you kill your grandfather, you can't be here, so you create a new timeline where you may not exist, but you are energy here, so you would continue being here with your grandfather in place, alive, but the timeline that was created by you killing him goes on a different direction where you do not exist. What's your take?
My experience is that your past is always your past, but the actions you take affect your future. So you can go into the past and kill your infant self, and you will still continue. Now, I don't know if it's a destruction of one timeline and creation of another or not. But I know in practice, you can go back in time and pretty much do whatever you want, and you will still continue to exist. When I was at Montauk, that was one of the things that we were testing in the early 60s. I was there in the winter of 61, 62, and we were testing the butterfly effect, which is a variant of that idea. And we found there are key individuals at any given moment that their lives matter for the future.
Yeah.
And the rest are no less valuable, but their lives don't matter for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that had to be taken into effect, but people are not being told that was the outcome of the study. People are still believing you go back, you step on a butterfly, and we're not going to be humans anymore. We're going to be dinosaurs. Well, it depends on which butterfly you step on.
Yeah, I think I'm struggling with that one, but it's just, yeah, I think though that there are some hierarchies within living creatures. There are some that has a greater influence on timelines as well as existence than others. Others may be just as important, but in their arena of influence for them.
I'm not saying that the other people don't matter, that the other individuals don't matter, because they do.
No, I was thinking of the butterfly.
Okay, if you're looking at the butterfly, the other individual butterflies also matter.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't have the same effect on the future that that particular one does.
Yep.
And it's not saying that the others don't matter, because they're still there. They still take up space. They're still energetic forms. They still interact with the environment. And if they disappeared, you would suddenly have this big empty place, and that one that mattered would be alone. And things would turn out very differently.
Yeah, and you affect everybody around you. If you suddenly, just like that, disappeared, everything around you have to be rearranged.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not like someone you were married to suddenly became a widow, no, because you never want to met her in the first place. And everything has to be rearranged. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we do not see, that in fact is not even arranged by us, because there's some of the stuff that we are going through are predetermined when we came here and created this body, which we are walking around in order for the spiritual essence, so to speak, to have physical experience. Now, let's take some people will call it a soul consciousness or whatever. If it hasn't got a physicality, it cannot have the real experience in the physical, but it needs the experience. That's why we're here as physical beings, to have those experiences. And let's lead it to something called time slippage. I bet just about everybody out there have had it happen one time or another, where you slip from one timeline into another one. Let me ask, I'm asking the audience here as well as you. Have you ever come back with your hands full of grocery bags, going into the kitchen, put your car keys on the island, and then put away the groceries and come back to get the keys and they're not there anymore? I had that happen one time. Guess where I found the keys?
Where?
I found it in the freezer, in the refrigerator. And I had not opened the freezer door. Now, don't tell me I did that without knowing it. I can be
Yeah,
really
I might
down.
do that without knowing that, but I have alters and I have missing time. So I have lots of things that I don't know if it's an alter did it or if it's a time slippage. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
these
another,
things, it
that's another,
happens.
yeah.
So the concept of more than one timeline is very real. In fact, I got pictures and can prove it. But on the other hand, think of it this way. If you have only you, what you do become maybe a little more important. Because here's a good question. Have you ever done something in the past that was so screwed up and so stupid that you would love to go back and have a do-over and do it right? I got my hand up.
I have had a dozen key decisions or actions over my Earth lifetime that have affected the rest of my life majorly. And some of them I would like to have a do-over. Others of them I look back in horror and wonder if there was any decent decision that could have been made then.
We can remember that mind-created universe now. What we create in our mind and allow to be dwelling in our mind the most, with most intention, visual images, emotion, and so on, that is what we will have in our life. So let's say that you did something really stupid 8 years ago, and you would love this. Oh, no, I really should have done that differently.
I really did something stupid in 2013. And it resulted in my memories of Black Ops being activated.
What if we could have a do-over? Follow me on this one, because this can be done. Remember the mind-created universe when I explained this. Let's say that 8 years ago, you did something really stupid. You will go back in your mind to a time before you made that stupid decision. And then put yourself in that situation where you are about to make that decision, and consciously create the decision in your mind as being different than the one you did. Create that new decision of not doing the stupid thing, but doing something you know or would suspect be much better. Do that over and over again. Create this and work on it in your mind. The mind can create that new timeline in your existence, which leads in a different direction. And now again, there is two different schools of thought within quantum mechanics to say the first timeline will collapse or it will continue. or the new timeline will also continue with you being in both of them. Now we
And
have.
if you're in both of them, you still have someone there.
Yeah, yeah.
You're
The thing
still
is,
experiencing that.
yeah, but if you end up creating a new timeline, your consciousness could be in that new timeline where it didn't happen. The only thing about it that it is unlikely that you would remember the stupid thing you did, so you may end up doing the same stupid thing. So,
Yeah.
because if you don't remember what you did wrong, you may not know that it is wrong in the new timeline. So there is some ambiguity here about should you or should you not even try. But I have had time slippage as well as time travel. And in 2003, BBC Television came over to the United States to do a TV documentary on time travel. They interviewed Michio Kaku and Green and another physicist, a theoretical physicist, and myself. On that video, I demonstrated a small electronic device that I have that I've had some very strange experiences with. And what happens is that once you activate the machine, it creates a bubble, an electromagnetic bubble around you. And I was experimenting with this thing. I must have done it 50 times, and I could get nothing until I started adjusting my brainwave pattern down into the bottom of the alpha range. And I was aiming for about 7.4 cycles a second, which is supposed to be a magic number. I don't know if I got exactly that, but I got it down to the bottom. And you can test these things, you know, with the biofeedback equipment.
So 7.4 and not the Schumann's?
Well, the Schumann's these days, you got spikes to over 100, so it's really kind of strange.
It spikes quite a bit lately, but it was steady for decades.
Yeah, or millennia, as far as we know. Until now.
And the last decade or so, it's
yeah,
it's gone batshit.
Yeah, something like that. But if you, what was I going to say?
You were talking about that you brought your brainwave pattern down to 7.4.
And once I got it down to that, and then I went into meditation, that's when I started to see things and do things. And it seemed like I was alone when I did this. And I'm not so sure I actually went anywhere physically, but my consciousness went. I could see things, I could experience things. And one time I saw myself walking down the sidewalk on a street. That was in Tucson. And as I walked down the street, it appeared as the people that was coming the other way, they changed their path. So either they could see me or sense me because I was there in front of them. Okay. So that is something I still really do not understand. And one time I walked up to a newspaper stand, because normally when you do this thing, there is no timestamp on it, except if you find a newspaper with a date on it, then you have a date stamp. And that's what I did. And that newspaper was about 6 months ahead in the future. So I also, on the website, I have 2 pictures sitting next to each other where I did a mind experiment. This was in 2008. So it's about 14 or so years ago now. Make that 16. Or what I did, I sat in front of the computer. I was watching the screen and I was watching a video display of a place in Europe. actually from my hometown back in Europe.
Mm.
And I took a screenshot of the page. And then quite a while later, I sat down and did the same thing. I put myself in that state of mind, lowered the brainwave pattern, and I tried to go back to the time when I took the first screenshot. I wanted the exact same time. Well, for some reason, I took another screenshot, and when I compare the two pictures, they're different, but they have the same timestamp on it. Actually, I missed it by 1 minute and 4 seconds, or 1 minute and 8 seconds. But I can show you that in a second. But you see, on one of the pictures, the trees there have leaves on them, and the other one it doesn't. On the one picture, you can see that it's been raining, it's wet everywhere. You can see the water laying on the road, so the light is glistening off of it, reflecting off the water. And the other one, the ground is perfectly dry. There is no reflection of light on the water on the road. And I've been wanting to have people test this. So if there's anybody out there that can actually blow it up and check the pixels, I would love to hear from you. I tried one in Phoenix and he said, yeah, I can do it, and nothing happened. I tried somebody here in Tucson and it never really happened either. So I like to see somebody check it out to make sure that there is no tampering with the picture, especially around the timestamp.
Okay.
That is what I want somebody to confirm, because I know there is no tamper, but other people don't know that.
Yeah. That when I post something that I think is definitive, I almost always get told, well, the pixels are messed with. I don't know how to test that. So
yeah, it's really fairly simple if you know how to do it. All you just keep blowing it up, blowing it up, blowing it up until you got a whole bunch of squares. If the squares did not line up around there, then it's tampered with.
okay.
So that's what I want to see somebody do, and get in touch with me. I'll tell you, this is something that it happened. I did it, and I have the photographic evidence of it. I could show it to you if you like.
Yeah. You can't, I think you've got it where you can share screen.
Yeah, let's see here. Okay, there we go. I will share screen. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
You have to let me do it.
Okay, we get to find where I do that.
I don't know.
Oh, found it.
Okay.
Okay, that should make it where you can do it.
There we are.
Yay.
Okay, now I will share video and I will share sound. So can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. There's a lot of goofy pictures here. In fact, here's a taxi cab in Russia with a bear in the back seat, just sticking his head out the window.
Well,
Only
I understand
Russia.
that. I understand that there are Russians who keep bears as pets.
Yeah, I've seen it actually. I've been to Russia 3 times, and when you see somebody walking down the street with their pet on a leash, and the pet is a small bear cub, then you know you are in Russia.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. There's 2 pictures. I'm gonna click on this one.
Okay.
And it's gonna come up shortly. Here we go. There's some text to it. What you should do is to go to broadcastteamalpha.com, and go to page 15. In the
Okay.
middle of the page, you will see those pictures. And here you see it is pretty wet.
Yeah, it
You
is.
can see some brown leaves on this tree. There's a little bit of leaves here. And there is some activity over here at the gas station. Let me just check this one. No leaves on that tree. No leaves here. On the, can you see my cursor at the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay, there is no leaves here. The road is dry. The activity at the gas station is gone. So chances are that maybe there is a remote possibility that you could have a dumped download of rain in 1 minute and 4 seconds. But I doubt that you would get rid of the leaves on the trees. And there is some lights over here that is no longer on. And if you compare these two pictures, you can see some of that.
Yeah.
Here, there's a van sitting over here. There's a car over there. And wet all over the place. And what I did not understand, because back then I did not understand, quantum mechanics told me I cannot bring any physical evidence from one timeline to the other one. And then this happened. And I'm not the one to tell quantum mechanics they're wrong. I don't have the PhD behind my name to prove that. But here it is.
My understanding of how the world actually operates is that physicists can have theories and they can prove aspects of those theories, but anyone can come up with evidence that disproves other parts.
Yeah. You were buffering so much there, so I got rid of the page. So I think I was using too much of the bandwidth. Okay. Now you sound good.
Well, I have this small problem that I'm on. I think we're still on 4G here, and AT&T stopped maintaining the lines, and so I'm using an off-brand, but it goes through the air, and
Oh, okay.
there's trees in between. So if it's swaying the wrong way, it will cut into my bandwidth.
Yeah. Yeah, that can happen.
Well, I live in the mountains, you know.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
That's right.
I get this beautiful panorama of trees and meadows and cows and that sort of thing, and I pay for it with less bandwidth. Those are interesting photos, though, for only supposed to be a minute or so apart.
1 minute and 4 seconds. I missed it with that time.
That's amazing that you were able to get photographs, screenshots.
Yeah, and that's what puzzled me for quite a while. And when I did the demonstration for BBC television, when they came over to the US, and they flew us all down to New Orleans, and we got to mosey around a little bit down there on Mardi Gras, and it was just happened to be at the same time. And boy, oh boy. and then
I've never been to it, so I'll take your word for it.
I think everybody should do it once, and that's all they need. But we went out to a big estate west of town, and they did the filming out there. And I talked about some of the things that I've seen in the future.
Mhm.
Some of that did not happen.
Okay.
And I've learned a lot about time since then, because I have found that we can create different timelines for ourselves on the basis of what we allow to dwell in our mind. And at the time, I was hosting and producing 2 TV shows in Tucson. I did it for 6 years, and this was in 2003. I quit that in 2005. And what happened is that I was very much deeply involved in government conspiracy, government wrongdoings, and I was in the freedom fight movement. I didn't have a driver's license. I used on the traveler concept, and there is no law requiring you to have one, and I tried to claim that. And of course, the cops, they didn't think too highly of that, so I ended up in court a few times. And I had 5 traffic tickets. I beat them in court, so they're gone. But I was all into the fight, the freedom movement fight.
Mhm.
And in that future, there would have been some really nasty things that have happened. And that's what I saw. So after 2005, I left that alone. I went a different direction, in a more spiritual and more started researching the mind, more so than I did before. And I found that these things that I saw don't have to happen if I have create a new timeline. And that is what I did, and that is what brought me here. And that is why I am not worried about the future whatsoever. It's going to be good. There's going to be a little fewer people on Earth, but not that much. There are some of the people out there that think they know something. They say, 90% of the people on the globe is going to die because of this stupid thing they gave themselves in the arm. Well, no. There is antidotes. There is remedies. And these things will become apparent once we get rid of the corrupt media, so actual information can come out. So it's not going to be that bad. But 2 things have to happen. You have to listen, and you have to be teachable. Otherwise, you have some challenges.
I was given, I like you talked about that you were looking at the timeline. I took a different approach than you did, so I don't have photos because I wasn't online, but I went above the timeline to see all the timelines.
Yes, you can actually do that.
And that was the approach I took. And so I would pick the one I wanted to be in, but I would see all of them. So I would see how things were going to turn out in each of them. And I would tell people, well, we're going to have a timeline split, and some of it's going to do this, and some of it's going to do this, and some of it's going to do this. Well, what are we going to have? And I go, I don't know where you're going to be, because your consciousness is going to split, and you're going to be in all 3, but I don't know which one you will remember. So I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen because I don't know which split you're going to be in.
That's right.
Now, at one point, there were 5 splits that I was watching. One was the Zeta hybrids, and that one split off. That's already gone. There was one that was Nibiru was going to hit, and we were going to be destroyed. And I keep seeing people trying to revive that one, but that one split off. It's gone. It actually happened in that split, but it didn't happen here. The next split, well, I don't know the exact times on the next 3 splits, but one of them is New World Order, which is basically feudalism.
Mm.
The next one is the sentient AI. And the third one is less population, but the people that are left are happier. And so I just tell people, pick your timeline, choose wisely, be happy with what you got. Those are the options that I see. I don't know which one you're going to be on, but they haven't split yet. So you choose by your choices. Like you said, if you're thinking about all these god-awful horror things, this is what you're going to end up with.
That's right. And I had, several years ago now, I had an incredible experience when the universe was downloaded into my mind, both in concept and detail. And in there, one of the things I saw in one of those timelines, because there is, we have a hologram here, because holograms in every one of them, and everything is part of the imaginary illusion, so to speak. And one of these timelines have Hillary won the presidency, and we are deep in World War III.
Yeah,
after that.
I saw that too.
Yeah, it was there. Now there's one that I haven't gotten rid of, and that is where the 2 rocks come out of the sky and land in the Atlantic, and it makes it really difficult for people on the East Coast of Florida.
Well, some things are not fixable, but
yeah,
like you mentioned before, the consciousness has decided on certain things.
You can actually create.
My terminology for that is the timeline is sentient.
Mm-hmm.
It chooses what it wants, and sometimes you can override those choices, and sometimes you can't.
Yeah, we would wish that we could do that all the time, but it all depends on how deeply and strongly we care about it too. We can create the future that we want to have before we have to live it.
Yeah.
And Norilov and I, we do a mastermind session on Sundays at 11 o'clock California time, 2 o'clock in the afternoon East Coast time, where we actually bend the laws of physics sometimes in order to get things done. And we do some incredible things. So if some of you want to be part of that, just send us an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com, and I'll send you some information so you could participate if you want to. Now in there, we know that in a mind-created universe, our mind is key to everything. We can create the future we want, put it at a time-coded event in the future. Forget the calendar, that's man-made, don't mean a thing to the universe. A time-coded event, birthday party, New Year's party, Christmas party, whatever. A time-coded event, place it there. And then put into it the details of what you want to have and see in your future. Let's say you want a new house, you want a new this or that, or you want to have a business, or just create in your mind what you want really strongly with vivid, colorful pictures, emotion. Find the people that you want to do this with. Make sure you have some. The universe is sticky about that. It's not a selfish thing. When you give to others, you will get. So make sure you do that. Put a lot of emotion into it and love into it. And you do this every day. Go forward to that thing in the future you created. Do it every day. Every time you do that, you lay down attractor strings to it. These are little tiny strings, white strings that you lock in that thing in the future. Every time you go there, you go up this timeline, you solidify it. So you get drawn up this timeline to that thing in the future that you created. You keep doing that. And in the meantime, do whatever you can to help happen what you created. And this is one of the things that I got to show you. In this book, I teach you how to do this. Spiritual science, higher conscious thinking, and how to access the universal consciousness. In there, I also teach you how to do time travel. And if you do this, you're going to find yourself drawn up this timeline, and amazing things happen to you. People will come out of the woodwork to help you do what you want to do, because the universe will arrange for things to happen. You call it God, you call it universe, you call it angels. Things will fall out of trees on your path sometimes just to help you make things happen. And I have seen that, I've done it. That's why I don't have problems in my life. I don't accept negativity, because I have designed it all out of my life. And this is something that everybody can do. And in the details in here, you can actually help you set up the building blocks on how to make this happen. I teach people in this book how to use their mind in ways that you normally would think would be impossible. All the way up to photographic memory, eidetic memory, how to change the past, how to create the future. There is amazing things we can do with our minds, but we are never told, because two reasons. First of all, if somebody knew, they wouldn't tell you. But the trick is that nobody really knows. They should have taught you this in school, but the teachers don't know how. So how in the world could they tell you? Because the teachers has never been taught how to use their mind. All they have is a textbook. If they don't teach out of the textbook, they get fired.
Well, there are some folks who know how to do this, and they have ended up in charge, and they guard that zealously.
Yep. There's a few.
There's a few.
But this is, if this was taught to people, I do teach it on shows all the time. And I know the shows are getting out there, so our community is getting bigger and bigger all the time. And then we have, thought leaders like Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza, and Bruce Lipton, and others,
Mm-hmm.
So the information is getting out there now. We're getting down to the fact the information is out there, but that's only half the equation. We got to do something. Knowing is not enough anymore. We got to do something. We got to practice those things. And that involved taking 5 minutes out of your day every so often to sit down and close the mind down and meditate on what you want. When you do, you will do in the future too. And you will do what you want to do. I have pretty much done in my life what I love to do. Well, it wasn't easy all the time. Growing up on a farm in Norway, that was easy life. But I knew that's not what I really wanted to do. So sold the farm and came to the United States to become a commercial pilot. I did that. I flew for a living for 23 years. Going through flight school was not easy with a language barrier.
I'll bet not.
But I had to do it. I burned my bridge. I couldn't go back. I would be the laughing stock of everybody back then. I couldn't do that. So I just went for it. And it took a year, and I was a flight instructor. I worked for other people for 3 years until we started our own flight school. I became an international air taxi and an air carrier. It wasn't easy, but I always lived in the future. I kept telling myself, my day will come. And I looked at this thing that I was dreaming about in the future. When you do that, things happen. If you think about all the misery that could happen in your life, yeah, things happen. You'll have that. I never thought about that. Not very long anyway.
Yeah.
There were times, you know, when you had a flat tire and you walk outside and you, how did that happen? But, or worse things, you think about it and then you forget it. Don't let it dwell in your mind.
I tend to just let things slide. I had surgery in December, and it's been a slow recovery. And part of that has been the nature of the surgery, and part of it's been my age. And the worst thing that I've actually had to deal with has been the expectation that I would be all better after 6 weeks. And this is a 6-month recovery surgery. The surgeon told me that at the get-go. So it's the expectations of others that I was supposed to be all well by now. And it's like, my doctor says I'm doing fine, that I'm ahead of schedule. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing well. So, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned a word in there that is kind of a tricky word, and that word was age.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this, and if you argue with me, I'm going to prove it to you. Age is a concept created by the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody accepts. Religion tell you, government tell you, mortician tell you, everybody tells you you're going to go old and you're going to get gray hair and you're going to die. Everybody tells you.
I'm 66. I have a little bit of gray, but I've had that little bit of gray for the last 20 years.
Yeah, and I am 76.
I don't have wrinkles. If I lost weight, I might. This big thing in the middle of my neck is from surgery. It's not from age. And the only place I really feel it is my joints, but I have not lived an easy life. I grew up on a farm. I had kids. I chopped wood. You know, I lived my life so far, and I'm not giving up yet. So,
well, let me tell you something. Age. Oh, you mentioned another word, gray hair. For all of you out there listening to this, if you have gray hair, listen really close. Gray hair has nothing to do with age.
No,
nothing.
It doesn't.
It is a function of an acidic body and copper deficiency. Get your hands on some liquid ionic copper, and then do whatever it takes to alkalize the body. Baking soda is good for starters, but then you change your diet so you can do it without it. When you do that, hair color comes back. How much gray hair do you see here?
About as much as I have.
Just a little bit.
I've got 2 spots on the top of my head, and it's starting in the back. But most people I know that are my calendar age have a full head of hair that's gray, and I don't.
Yeah, it happens because they got an acidic body. You eat the American diet, you know, and other things. But did you know that in 2009, there were 3 doctors that got the Nobel Prize for discovering an enzyme that reverses the aging process?
No, I didn't know that one.
Yeah, I'm taking that enzyme. Now, on the other hand, is that science knows what causes aging. That is why The CDC have come up with a brand spanking new disease as of 3 years ago. Guess what the disease is called? Aging.
Ah,
It's called aging. It can be cured.
good.
In here, I am explaining what I'm doing by reversing the aging. And the thing is that there's many contributaries
Mhm.
to aging. Religion is the worst one.
Well, I booted that out of my life a long time ago.
Yeah, because they tell you, hey, you're going to die. Okay. The thing about it is that when you get old and you start hurting everywhere and you just really can't do what you did before and, get pains everywhere, that thing that religion tell you about, when you get old and you die, you're going to go to this other place and there is no pain, there is no disease, and everything is wonderful if you go to heaven. Of course, if you go to the other place, downstairs in the basement, you better be a good boy and send us a check on, to support the church. Otherwise, you're going to go downstairs. Yeah.
Religion is mind and wallet control.
Yeah. But the thing about it is that science has found what causes aging is the shortening of the telomeres at the end of the chromosomes inside your cells.
Mhm.
There's many different contributaries to that, but one of the biggest one is the lack of the enzyme called telomerase, or telomerase, some call it.
Mhm.
That is what these 3 doctors discovered in 2009. Actually, they discovered it earlier, but they just got the Nobel Prize in 2009. Don't take my word for it. Go to the Nobel Committee's website, scroll down to 2009, scroll down again to medical submissions, and
Okay.
read the papers. You're going to love it, because that proves it can be done. A lot of new research has happened since 2009,
Mhm.
15 years ago. Now it is a lot more effective. There's 2 ways that you can do this. You can do it the more expensive way and the cheap way, like I'm doing it. If you go on the internet and get up, you can actually, you get a lot more information also. Reversing the aging process, put that into Google it.
Okay.
And then you're going to find something called TA-65. It's a pharmaceutical. And if you take one of those every day, you're supposed to be able to create this enzyme in the body that will lengthen the telomeres at the end of the chromosomes. And that will also then allow the cells to divide. So you get new cells and you don't get stuck with old cells in the body and become old and wrinkled and die. But that's the thing. What they found is that if you lack this enzyme, telomerase, the telomeres are getting shorter and shorter and shorter until they are so short, they can no longer hold the end of the chromosomes together. So the end of the chromosomes start fraying and the cells are no longer able to replicate themselves, and you get stuck with old cells in the body, get more and more old cells, and you get older and older and you croak.
Yeah. No
Now,
cells are immortal except cancer cells, and we don't want them.
the cells are immortal if you have enough of the enzyme that keeps the telomeres long enough for the cells to be able to replicate themselves. But that's what happened. That when you lack that enzyme, the telomeres shrink and the cells, they will die. This is, you can read about that in the Nobel Committee's website.
Okay.
Somewhere in those papers, one of the doctors made the statement, if the body had enough of this enzyme in their system, there will be no reason for anyone to die from old age anymore. Now, I know enough about the Nobel Prize. It's, hey, they're in Oslo, Norway, right? That's where I grew up. So I know that if the Nobel Committee found anything wrong in that paper, they would reject the whole thing.
Yeah. They're
So,
pretty good about that, what they
unless
make
you
clear.
unless your name is Obama, then anything goes.
Well, they've done some stupid things about the political stuff the last, what, 20, 30 years. They've given Nobel Prizes to people that shouldn't have had.
Yeah, that was just payoffs. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we know how. And pressure. And in fact, the Nobel Committee came out and made a statement about that. They buckled into pressure.
Such
So,
things are known to happen.
yeah. I think they're more careful now. So
I would hope
maybe
so.
I hope so too. But that's important. And one of the things that is along with it, make sure you don't get gray hair, because copper deficiency is extremely detrimental to the physical body, because it weakens muscle cells, especially where the muscle cells are connected to the cartilage at the end where they touch bone. And when you weaken a muscle by having copper deficiency, it can break. Look at the heart. What is the heart? It's all muscle. And I read in a medical report saying that anybody that has a severe copper deficiency, pretty much all of them die from cardiomyopathy. Cardiomyopathy is when the heart muscle break and they die. And that is the first indication, gray hair, that's copper deficiency. Now you possibly, I don't know this, but I possibly could get that if there was a severely acidic body, but still have enough copper in the body. That's possible. But if you have a severely acidic body, you're going to have other things. You're going to have cancers. You're going to have all kinds of other garbage that come and take over, and you might expire from that too. And of course, you know how this is. I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. You go do your own research.
Yes, I understand how that is on that women's news magazine. I post things that are traditional medicine, and I have to put at the top of it, not to be construed as medical advice.
Yeah, no, because we don't want to step into that arena anyway. It's doctors are very constipated about these things, and we don't want to mess with them.
Well, I have issues with people who hear one symptom and will prescribe you all kinds of stuff, and they have no idea what you're already on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's bad news.
Yeah, that's dangerous. Things like mixing grapefruit with beta blockers or St. John's wort with antidepressants. You know, they're asking for trouble. And these people are not even asking if you're on this stuff. And that's asking for trouble.
Yeah. I hear a lot, and I have been one of the people that have been saying that, you know, hey, if it's all natural from herbs and so on, herbs does not interfere with the pharmaceuticals. Yeah, most of the time they don't, but some do. So you really need to know what you're doing.
I have a book. It's the red copy of the physician's desk reference for herbals. And it is designed for naturopaths to be able to take the herbal and see what you can't take it with. So it prevents a lot of those problems.
Yeah.
And so you can look up an herb and you'll get a list of all the prescription the pharmaceuticals that are incompatible with it, and a list of the herbals that are incompatible with it, because not everything likes to be together.
Yeah.
And some things, if you take things that do the same thing, you can end up with an overdose.
Yeah, yeah.
The,
And
the
the
difference.
only overdose that I have ever so often is coffee.
Oh, yeah. I've only had like 8 cups today, trying to be
Oof.
awake enough to do this.
Oh man, you're not going to sleep for a week.
Oh, I'm going to sleep. I just won't sleep at night. But I've never slept at night.
Yeah.
My
No,
mother used to call me a vampire because I wouldn't sleep until 2 or 3 in the morning, even as an infant.
I hear ever so often that coffee is bad for you, and then next day I hear the coffee is good for you. Go to broadcastteamalpha.com, go into blogs, and scroll down. It's not that far. Just read the one I did on coffee and the medical benefits. You are going to start drinking coffee because it's phenomenal good medical benefits from coffee. Just not if you take 8 cups.
Well, that's the last one of it for today.
Yeah.
But my partner's, the man I live with, he drinks nothing but coffee all day and all night, and then he goes right to bed, and he's asleep as soon as he hits the pillow.
Mm-hmm. Now the thing about coffee is that it's acidic.
Mm-hmm.
Most coffee is acidic.
Mm-hmm.
There is one coffee that I drink, and that's Tyler's coffee. That is non-acidic. Or you can say you can drink any coffee as long as you put just a little pinch of baking soda in it. That'll take away the acidity, the acid.
Okay.
And it doesn't change the taste. It still tastes like good coffee. And if you do that, you're good. Well, that's my opinion anyway, and sticking to it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, coffee is the last vice I have. I got rid of sugar. I got rid of soda.
Sugar is a poison.
Sugar, soda. Oh, there was a time when I did all of the diet foods.
Mm.
I don't do those anymore. There was a
No,
time
because
there was
they take out the sugar, but they leave the other poisons in there.
Yeah.
To replace the sugar.
They replace it with other things. What else did I give up? I gave up all the diet foods. I gave up the diet pills. Dexatrim used to have a chemical that was called phenylpropanolamine.
Mm.
And it was miraculous because it actually worked. You didn't gain weight while you took it. Had energy for days. And as soon as it wore off, you'd go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then they found it caused strokes in people who took it regularly.
Oof.
It had been over the counter before that, and it was taken off the market completely in 2000.
Mm.
So
yeah. Now they do, but they made a lot of money before that time. But I think one of the things, that there is a lifestyle change that will create good health. And that is not necessarily one that works for everybody, but it works for you. You gotta have the mind right, as well as do an exercise program of some sort. I think I got my mind on the right track, and I do an exercise program that is called the Tibetan Rites. And the Tibetan Rites, it doesn't necessarily bulk you up, but it creates a very healthy and strong body and good looking body, because you get the muscle developed in the right places. It also has an anti-aging effect if you add the minds to the equation. You can look in fact, there's a book on the internet. It's a free book that you can get that explains the Tibetan rites. Read the book.
The biggest problem that I have with my health is that I let the doctors talk me into doing a brain scan study in the 80s. And they used too much radioactive iodine on me. So that is the source of the biggest problems that I have. So if you can figure out how to undo that, then I can be fixed. But in the meantime, that's the problem.
A heavy metal detox maybe could do wonders on that.
I've done a heavy metal detox because my second husband fed me arsenic to collect on life insurance. So I've already done the detox, and I still have the effects of the radioactive iodine. So that's part of why I get frustrated with people who offer solutions, is because they don't ask why I'm in this shape. They assume that it's from an acidic diet or poor exercise. And the real problem is that I let them do these brain studies on me. And the brain...
Liquid zeolite.
Okay.
Try that. That takes out radioactivity from the body.
Okay. I'll look into that one. So
I just happen to have one here.
I've been using Ormus from Kevin Hayes' site. It's helped a lot. Give me a minute, I'll grab my bottle here. Kevin will be happy to hear this, that I actually am using it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so.
Ormus, it's got to be used right.
Yeah.
Start little and start building it up, and along the road you will, for some reason, you will know when you have reached your limit. And stay at that limit, because the body will adjust, or should I say the mind will adjust to it. And then you can go on further. I am taking it in the large doses now, and I'm starting to have some really spectacular effects that I did this about many years ago, well over a decade, I think, ago. And you can walk down the street and you hear somebody talking, but there's nobody there. They're down the street, let's say, so far away that you couldn't hear them anyway, but you can hear them.
Yeah.
Telepathy is a real thing.
I have to shut that down because my neighbors, my neighbors think very loud. And my neighbors think about food, sex, going to the bathroom, and wanting to hit somebody.
Yeah.
And they very, very rarely think about anything. But those basically body feels. They're like emotional reactions. Those come through so loud that it's really overwhelming, and I actually work at not hearing them.
Another thing that I'm starting to see come back, and that is that you can see into the higher vibrations. I'm taking it in the morning and the evening, twice a day, and I'm starting to see the shadow people coming back. I can see them out there on the side. They're moving around. When you look over there, they're gone. But there's a reason for that too, that the center of the retina cannot see as high into the light spectrum as the periphery.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's out there, and you can see them kind of like structured. It looks like humanoid structures, and you can see them moving around. And it's going to be more and more apparent. I don't know though if it's the only effect of the Hormuz, but the environment we are in right now, the veil is getting thinner and thinner.
The
We are
veil is
starting to see.
definitely getting thinner. I have seen several other levels my entire life. And those beings are starting to shift, where the ones that were lower frequencies, I'm seeing them less and less. And the ones that were just beyond reach are now interacting with me.
Yeah.
And you can't talk to normals about that. They think you're schizophrenic.
Yeah, the guys in the white coats are going to come knocking on your door. It's just, but the thing is that those realities, they're there.
Oh yeah, they're definitely
first
there.
of thing, even if we start taking the Ormus and get the effects of that, or the raising of vibration in the environment, we have to accept it.
Yeah.
The mind has to accept it. Otherwise, we're going to end up with the same thing as the people in South America when the ships came 500 years ago. Some of the natives down there, they couldn't see the ships because that ship was so far out of their concept of understanding that it couldn't be there.
Yeah, cognitive dissonance is a real thing.
Yep.
You have to be of a mindset to see what you see. Otherwise, even if your eyes see it, your brain doesn't.
Yeah, because it's the brain that sees, it's not the eyes.
Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's getting deep when you step out of the box.
I've been out of the box all along, and it was hard to find people to talk to. My partner is half Iroquois, and he was trained as a shaman. And when we met, we were at work, and I had been poisoned, and I was divorcing the man who had poisoned me. And we started talking about what my capabilities were, and some of them I was freaking out about. And one evening we're at his house, and he comes up to me and he puts his fingers at my armpit level and lifts. And I'm coming out of my body. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he says, I'm testing you. He says, you know that problem that you've described having of you just will sort of wander off? He says, you don't have the anchor. That normal people have an anchor to keep you in your body. That mine's missing. So that was an interesting observation he made. It explains a lot of the stranger things that I do. So.
Yeah, we see things, and once you end up on a path like we have here, we don't know where the path will end up. But we know there are amazing things out there that we can see, we can experience, we can hear, we can communicate. That is just like an astral traveler, which if you go to broadcastteamalpha.com, you go into classes, and I have a class in there on astral travel. This can be learned. It's not that hard to do. But again, you know, those classes are available to the people that is part of the mastermind group, because you have to be a little bit conscious in order to do these things. And once, I mean, you can go to YouTube. I went, a while back, I went there and I found this video was 6 minutes long. Its title was Learn to Astro Travel in 6 minutes. Yeah. And
I've had people ask me to teach them, and I'm like, how do you teach someone to see?
Yeah,
how do you teach someone to walk? You know, it's like, you can't. You know,
right.
it's like you open your eyes and you see. How do you teach someone to do that? They either can or they can't.
Yeah, and like this 6 minute video, the thing about it is that if you keep doing what she said on that video every day for months, chances are you might be able to get out of the body. But when you get out, you are in an environment that you know nothing about. You have no clue what you will see and experience out there. If you meet someone, how do you deal with that? Where can you go? Where you could run into things that doesn't feel good. It could be somewhat dangerous, actually. If you travel through far, if you're traveling in the astral vehicle, you're always connected to the physical body through the silvery cord. But if you run out of cord, you snap back, and that can hurt.
Yeah.
And now you can go to the moon and you can have a look at some of these things, like Schroeder crater, where you have an old, million years old building that looks like a swastika, which the Nazi German have built now. They have their base in it. You can have a look at some of these things, but you don't know the environment unless you go through somebody and learn from somebody that has done it and seen things. Then you can feel a lot more comfortable doing it. In fact, I talk about that in here too. But it's kind of like when you go through a minefield, follow somebody with bigger shoes than you have.
And stay in their steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. My partner said, just don't follow too close.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He was in Vietnam, so
yeah, I'm sure he related to that concept.
yeah. So yeah, he occasionally puts in an appearance or a statement into my show. That's cool though. It's always apropos.
Yeah.
So,
but astral travel it's not that hard to learn, and if you do learn it, it opens up a new world, not just in concept, but you really have a new world to explore.
Oh yeah, and the physics is different.
Oh yes, and everything it's backwards too. If you walk into the same room that you, let's say, would be in physical, let's say the light switch is always on the right side of the door. If you in your astral vehicle walk into the same room, the light switch is on the left, because everything is like looking in a mirror. Because now you're outside of the box looking into the box. In your physical, you're in the box looking out. Like looking in the mirror. Everything is backwards. So remember that when you...
I had to, I don't stay here. I go out, and it's more like being in space. And I had to learn when to come back.
Yeah.
And you're out there and you're so free, and then you come back and it's like your body's too small. Confining. And you can do things out there. You can wish it so and it appears. And you can create your own space and have it be whatever you want it to be. And explaining that to someone who's very 3D here and now, well, in astral, you can do all this. But what happens in astral isn't necessarily reality. And it doesn't always translate into 3D at all. And I've got folks from my community who are experiencing things in astral and assuming that that means they did certain things in 3D. And it's not necessarily so.
Yeah. Yes, you can create your own reality out there somewhat, but we're calling it astral travel, but it may not be. If you see yourself connected through the silver cord, yes, then you're traveling in the astral vehicle. But if you see no cord, it's not the astral vehicle that is traveling. Now it is consciousness, which has no limitations. And in the conscious travel, you can request, let's say, okay, this one's going to go out there, but let's say that you wanted to talk to your mom. She died 18 years ago. Think of her very strongly. Fill it with emotion and vivid images. That is kind of like the call. You're calling her out. If she gets the call, you may be able to communicate and meet.
Yeah.
So
that happened with my father, who died in 1980.
Yeah.
So
Yes, you really can. And it is a new world. And I don't even know, there's so much that can be said, but the language does not extend to the point where it can be explained.
there are colors and shapes and critters and functions there that cannot be explained here. And trying to use English words. English is not created for spirituality at all.
No, it's one of the most lousiest languages out, especially the American language, which is a bastardized version of the English language. So, but still, there are colors out there.
I work hard at using standard international English.
Yeah.
A lot of my audience is in Europe, Canada, Australia, and the former Soviet countries. And all of those people are speaking standard international English. So I make an effort to stay where that they can understand me.
Well, they're educated people.
They are.
Yeah. You can't get out of high school in Europe without knowing 3 languages.
Well, back in the day, when I was in school, if you were 10 years old, you were required to take a foreign language in California, where I live. Most of the time, that was Spanish being taught by people who didn't speak it. You learned your colors.
How stupid is that?
That's what happens when you apply a solution from above down.
Yeah.
Now, as soon as I got the opportunity, I started taking French from a woman who spoke it. And when I moved and there were no more French classes, I took German. And I'm in my 60s and I'm learning Latin. So I'm working on classical Latin rather than church Latin. And there is a difference. They pronounce things differently and vocabulary changes over time. So I'm learning the classics.
Yeah.
You have to do something to keep the brain working.
Yeah, yes, you do. And we're doing that.
Yeah, we are. So not all Americans are ignorant or uncultured. And I took sciences and math and languages. And I managed to get to be a junior at university before I was asked to leave because I had lupus. And I'm still alive. So the lupus has been dealt with.
Yep, there's cures for that too.
In 1980, there wasn't a cure for it. This was something that I beat on my own. So, which was part of why that they wanted to look at my brain.
Yep, yeah, there is demyelification of the nervous strands is becoming more and more common.
Well, in my case, apparently the Black Ops had put me in a centrifuge to prevent me reintegrating alters. And so my brain has anomalies that they didn't expect. And I was in my 30s then. We still have about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So
all right.
Go ahead, and since we're this close to time, go ahead and shamelessly plug your stuff.
Okay, I know how to do that. I'm going to bring this back up again. Spiritual science, higher conscious thinking, and how to access the universal consciousness. This is where you can learn in the back. I think this is the next to the last chapter about time travel, how I would do it. And also there is reversing the aging process in there. And I write about all the things that you're not supposed to know about. In fact, even how the old surviving Roman records explain what Yahshua Bet Halachme looked like. You know him?
I've heard of him.
You know him as Jesus, but that was his Hebrew name.
I know him as Yahushua ben Yosef.
Yeah, that was he had 3 identities that he was using. That was one of them. And this is the other one. And there's quite a bit about that in the Catholic Church and so on. There's, this extension of the Roman Empire anyway. So, so it's a little, yeah, it's
the
out of the
Catholic
box.
Church has been trying to genocide my family for its entire existence.
Yeah.
So.
But also go to broadcastteamalpha.com and mosey around there, have a look at things, and you're going to like it. If you want to be part of the mastermind group that Nori Love and I do on Sundays, send us an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com.
Okay.
And we will send you some information about the mastermind and then we'll get you a link so you can come and participate and see what's really going on and what's possible using the noggin the right way.
Well, thank you for coming, and thank my audience for listening, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, we will.